So let's start. Number 10, the Tunguska Event. On the 30th of June 1908, something exploded over the Siberian wilderness with the force of 1,000 Hiroshima bombs. The blast flattened 800 square miles of forest, around 80 million trees knocked down like matchsticks, but left no crater. Eyewitnesses reported a fireball racing across the sky, followed by shockwaves that shattered windows hundreds of miles away. Scientists eventually concluded it was likely an asteroid or comet fragment that exploded in the atmosphere before hitting the ground. But because of the remote location, no one investigated for decades, and by then, all they had were scorched trees and survivor stories. No meteorite fragments were ever conclusively found, and the exact cause is still debated. Some theories suggest it was a stony asteroid that disintegrated midair. Others say it was a comet made of ice that left little trace. Fringe explanations have ranged from a volcanic gas explosion to, of course, alien technology. What makes Tunguska so eerie is that it's a disaster that should have left obvious geological evidence, but instead, it feels like an enormous vanishing act. If Tunguska had happened just hours later, the blast would have leveled St. Petersburg, killing hundreds of thousands. Instead, it hit one of the emptiest spots on Earth. To this day, scientists study the event not just to understand what happened, but to prepare for the future. Because Tunguska isn't just history, it's a reminder that the Earth is still vulnerable to cosmic roulette. Number 9. The Nazca Lines. In the deserts of Peru lie the Nazca Lines, enormous geoglyphs carved into the ground, stretching across miles of barren landscape. Some are simple shapes like spirals and straight paths. Others are massive figures: a monkey, a hummingbird, a spider, even something that looks like an astronaut with a round head and raised hand. The catch? They can only be seen properly from above. The Nazca people made them between 500 BCE and 500 CE, but why is still unclear. Some scholars think they were offerings to the gods, huge prayers for water in the desert. Others argue they were astronomical markers, calendars etched into the earth. But that doesn't explain why some are so artistic or why they include animals that had no obvious connection to desert survival. What's baffling is how they managed the scale without aerial views. Did they have advanced surveying methods with ropes and stakes? Did they build observation towers? Or did they even experiment with primitive hot air balloons to check their work? We don't have solid answers. What we do know is that creating them would have taken enormous effort, coordination, and cultural meaning, none of which was written down. And then there are the fringe theories: alien landing strips, interstellar messages, signals to the sky. Archaeologists dismiss those ideas, but the truth is, we still don't really know. What's certain is that the Nazca Lines remain one of history's most stunning mysteries, proof that ancient people could create works so vast and strange that we're still squinting at them centuries later, wondering what message we've missed.
Number 8.
The dancing plague of 1,518 inches. The summer of 1,518, the city of Strasbourg, then part of the Holy Roman Empire, experienced one of history's strangest medical mysteries. A woman named Frau Trophea walked into the street and began dancing uncontrollably. She didn't stop for hours. Soon, dozens joined her, moving and twitching as if in a trance. Within weeks, hundreds of people were dancing, some for days on end, until they collapsed from exhaustion, injury, or even death. At first, the authorities thought it was possession or curse. Instead of stopping the dancers, they made it worse. They built stages and even hired musicians, thinking the dancers would dance it out of their system. Instead, the crowd grew larger and more frenzied. Chroniclers describe people foaming at the mouth, breaking ribs, and begging for relief while their bodies refused to stop. Historians today still don't have a clear answer. Some think it was mass hysteria brought on by stress, famine, and disease. Others suggest it was ergot poisoning, a mold on rye bread that produces hallucinogens similar to LSD. But neither explanation fully accounts for the sheer scale and duration of the outbreak. The dancing plague wasn't just a medical oddity, It was a social disaster. Entire families were caught in it, communities were disrupted, and priests performed exorcisms in desperation. Whatever triggered it, it shows just how fragile the line is between collective psychology and physical reality. Strasbourg learned the hard way that when humans panic in unison, the results can be as deadly as any plague.
Number 7.
The Baghdad Battery. In the 1930 seconds, archaeologists near Baghdad uncovered a small clay jar with a copper cylinder and an iron rod inside. At first glance, it looked like a simple storage vessel, but when scientists reconstructed it, they realized it could have worked like a primitive battery, generating a tiny electric charge when filled with an acidic liquid like vinegar or lemon juice. If true, that would mean people in ancient Mesopotamia had stumbled upon electricity around 2,000 years before Benjamin Franklin flew his kite. The jar wouldn't have powered light bulbs, but it could have been used for electroplating jewelry, shocking people in rituals, or just as a scientific curiosity. The fact that the concept existed at all long before the scientific method is what makes it so bizarre. Skeptics argue it might not have been a battery at all. Some say it was just a storage container for scrolls or religious texts, but experiments show that with the right liquid, it definitely produces a measurable current. And since multiple jars have been found, it suggests this wasn't an accident. Somebody knew how to make them. The real mystery is context. Why would ancient craftsmen need electricity? If they used it for plating gold onto objects, that means they weren't just experimenting. They were applying practical chemistry centuries before it should have existed. Whether it was an early science experiment or just a misunderstood artifact, the Baghdad Battery forces us to wonder how much ancient knowledge slipped through the cracks of history.